Scripture portions of the day. Day 317.
Matthew 1, OANT. The book of the genealogy of Yeshua the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob, Jacob begot Yehudah and his brothers. Yehudah begot Perez and Zohar from Tamar. And Perez begot Hezron, Hezron begot Aram, and Aram begot Amminadab, and Amminadab begot Nahashon, and Nahashon begot Salmon, and Salmon begot Boaz from Rahab. Boaz begot Obed and Ruth. Obed begot Jesse. Jesse begot David the king, and king begot Solomon from the wife of Uriah. Solomon begot Rehoboam. Rehoboam begot Abiah. Abiah begot Asa. Asa begot Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat begot Joram. Joram begot Uzziah. And Uzziah begot Jotham. And Jotham begot Ahaz. Ahaz begot Hezekiah. Hezekiah begot Menashe. And Menashe begot Amon. Amon begot Josiah. Josiah begot Jochanan and his brothers in the captivity of Babel. After the captivity of Babel, Jochanai begot Shalalthiel, and Shelathiel begot Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel begot Abiud, and Abiud begot Elo-heem, and Eliakim begot Azor, and Azor begot Zadok, and Zadok begot Akim, Akim begot Eliud, Eliud begot Eleazar, Eleazar begot Mathan, Mathan begot Yaakov, Yaakov begot Joseph, and guardian of Miriam, her from whom begotten Yeshua, who is called the Messiah. Therefore all generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David until the captivity of Babel, 14 generations, and from the captivity of Babel until the Messiah, 14 generations. The birth of Yeshua, the Messiah, was thus. When Miriam, his mother, was engaged to Joseph, before they could have conjugal relations, she was found pregnant from the Holy Spirit of holiness. But Joseph, her Lord, was righteous and did not want to expose her, and he was considered divorcing her secretly. But as he considered these things, the angel of Elohim Jehovah appeared to him in a dream and said to him, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary for your woman, for he who is begotten in her is from the Spirit of holiness. And she shall bring forth a son. She shall call his name Yeshua, and he shall save his people from their sins. Now all this happened, that the things that which is spoken from Elo-heem Jehovah by the prophets should be fulfilled. But the virgin shall conceive, she shall bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is translated, Our Jehovah with us. And when Joseph arose from his sleep, he did according to that which is the angel of Elohim Jehovah had commanded, and he took his wife. And he did not know her sexually until she delivered her firstborn son, and she called his name Yeshua.
Deuteronomy 21. 1. And if one be found slain with the sword in the land, which Jehovah thy Elohim gives thee to inherit, having fallen in the field, and they do not know who has smitten him. 2. Thine elders and thy judges shall come forth, and shall measure the distances of the cities round about the slain man. 3. And it shall be that the city which is nearest to the slain man, the elders of that city shall take a heifer of the herd, which has not labored, and which has not borne a yoke. 4. And the elders of that city shall bring down the heifer into a rough valley, which has not been tilled and is not sown, and they shall slay the heifer in the valley. 5. And the priests the Levites shall come, because Jehovah Elohim has chosen them to stand by him, and to bless in his name, and by their word shall every controversy and every stroke be decided. 6. And all the elders of that city, who draw nigh to the slain men, shall wash their hands over the head of the heifer, which was slain in the valley. 7. And they shall answer and say, Our hands have not shed this blood, and our eyes have not seen it. 8. Be merciful to thy people Israel, whom thou hast redeemed, O Jehovah, that innocent blood may not be charged on thy people Israel, and the blood shall be atoned for to them. 9. And thou shalt take away innocent blood from among you, if thou shouldest do that which is good and pleasing before Jehovah thy Elohim. 10. And if when thou goest out to war against thine enemies, Jehovah thy Elohim should deliver them into thine hands, and thou shouldest take their spoil. 11. And shouldest see among the spoil a woman beautiful in countenance, and shouldest desire her, and take her to thyself for a wife. 12. And shouldest bring her within thine house, then shalt thou shave her head, and pare her nails. 13. And shalt take away her garments of captivity from off her, and she shall abide in thine house, and shall bewail her father and mother the days of a month, and afterwards thou shalt go into her and dwell with her, and she shall be thy wife. 14. And it shall be if thou do not delight in her, thou shalt send her out free, and she shall not by any means be sold for money, thou shalt not treat her contemptuously, because thou hast humbled her. 15. And if a man have 2 wives, the one loved and the other hated, and both the loved and the hated should have borne him children, and the son of the hated should be firstborn. 16. Then it shall be that whensoever he shall divide by inheritance his goods to his sons, he shall not be able to give the right of the firstborn to the son of the loved one, having overlooked the son of the hated, which is the firstborn. 17. But he shall acknowledge the firstborn of the hated one to give to him double of all things which shall be found by him, because he is the first of his children, and to him belongs the birthright. 18. And if any man has a disobedient and contentious son, who hearkens not to the voice of his father and the voice of his mother, and they should correct him, and he should not hearken to them. 19. Then shall his father and his mother take hold of him, and bring him forth to the elders of his city, and to the gate of the place. 20. And they shall say to the men of their city, This our son is disobedient and contentious, he hearkens not to our voice, he is a reveler and a drunkard. 21. And the men of his city shall stone him with stones, and he shall die, and thou shalt remove the evil one from yourselves, and the rest shall hear in fear. 22. And if there be sin in any one, and the judgment of death be upon him, and he be put to death, and ye hang him on a tree. 23. His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but ye shall by all means bury it in that day, for every one that is hanged on a tree is cursed of Elohim, and ye shall by no means defile the land which Jehovah thy Elohim gives thee for an inheritance.
Daniel 5. Septuagint. Belshazzar the king made a great supper for the 1,000 nobles, and there was wine before the 1,000. And Belshazzar drinking gave orders that as he tasted the wine that they should bring the gold and silver vessels, which Nebuchadnezzar his father had brought forth from the temple in Jerusalem, that the king and his nobles and his mistresses and his concubines should drink out of them. So the gold and silver vessels were brought, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken out from the temple of Elo-heem in Jerusalem. And the king and his nobles and his mistresses and his concubines drank from them. And they drank wine, and praised the gods of gold and silver and brass, and of iron and wood and stone. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote in front of the lamp, on the plaster and the walls of the king's house. And the king saw the knuckles of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance changed, and his thoughts troubled him, and the joints of his loins were loosened, and his knees smote one to another. And the king cried aloud to bring in the magicians, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, and he said to the wise men of Babylon, Whosoever shall read this writing, and make known to me the interpretation, shall be clothed with scarlet, and there shall be a golden chain put around his neck, and he shall be the 3rd ruler in the kingdom. Then came in all the men's wise men, and they could not read the writing, nor make known the interpretation to the king. King Belshazzar was troubled, and his countenance changed upon him, and his nobles were troubled with him. Then the queen came in to the banquet house, and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, and not the countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom, in which is the spirit of Elohim, and the days of thy father, watchfulness and understanding were found in him. King Nebuchadnezzar thy father made him chief of the enchanters, magicians, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. For there is an excellent spirit in him, and a sense and an understanding in him, interpreting dreams, as he does, and answering hard questions, and solving difficulties. It is Daniel. And the king gave him the name of Belshazzar. Now, then, let him be called, and he shall be to thee an interpretation of the writing. Then Daniel was brought to him before the king. And the king said to Daniel, Art thou Daniel, children of the captivity of Judea, which the king my father brought? I have heard concerning thee, that the spirit of Elohim is in thee, and the watchfulness and understanding and excellent spirit have been found in thee. And now the wise men, magicians, soothsayers, have come before me, to read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation, but they could not tell me. I have heard concerning thee, that thou art able to make interpretations. Now then, if thou be able to read the writing, and to make known to me the interpretation of it, thou shalt be clothed in purple, and there shall be a golden chain put around thy neck, and thou shalt be the third ruler in my kingdom. And Daniel said before the king, Let thy gifts be to thyself, and give the presents of thine to another. But I will read the writing, and I will make known to thee the interpretation of it. O king, the most high Elohim gave to thy father Nebuchadnezzar a kingdom, and majesty, and honor, and glory. And by reason of this majesty which he gave him, all nations, tribes, languages trembled and feared before him, whom he would have slew, and whom he would have smote, and whom he would have exalted, and whom he would he abased. And when his heart was filled up, and his spirit was emboldened to act proudly, he was deposed from his royal throne, and his honor was taken from him. And he was driven forth by men, and his heart was given him after the nature of wild beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild asses. And they led him into the grass as an ox, and his body was bathed with the dew of heaven, until he knew that the Most High Elohim is Jehovah of the kingdom of men, and will give it to whoever he shall please. And thou, accordingly, his son Belshazzar, hast not humbled thine heart before Elohim. Knowest not this? And thou hast been exalted against Jehovah Elohim of heaven, and they have brought before thee the vessels of this house, and thou and thy nobles and thy mistresses and concubines have drunk from wine out of them, and thou wast praised as the God of gold and silver, brass and iron, wood and stone, which you see not, nor which you hear not, and know not, and the Elo-heem, whose hands are thy breath, and all thy ways hast thou not glorified. Therefore from his presence has been sent forth the knuckles of a hand, and he has ordered the writing. And this is the ordered writing: Mene, Thekel, Pharez. And this is an interpretation of a sentence: Mene, Elohim has measured your kingdom and finished it. Thekel, it has been weighed in the balance and found it wanting. Pharez, the kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Then Belshazzar commanded, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put the golden chain about his neck, and proclaimed concerning him that he was the third ruler in the kingdom. In that same night was Belshazzar the Chaldean king slain. And Darius of the Medes succeeded to the kingdom, being 62 years old. Daniel 6, Septuagint. And it pleased Darius, and he set over the kingdom 120 satraps, to be in all his kingdom, and over them 3 governors, of whom one was Daniel, for the satraps to give account to them, and the king should not be troubled. And Daniel was over them, and there was an excellent spirit in him, and the king set him over all his kingdom. Then the governors and satraps sought to find occasion against Daniel, but they found nothing against him, of no occasion, nor trespass, nor error, because he was faithful. And the governor said, We shall find not occasion against Daniel, except in the ordinances of his Elohim. Then the governors and the satraps stood by the king, and said to him, King Darius, live forever. All who preside over thy kingdom, captains, satraps, chiefs, and local governors, have taken counsel together to establish a royal statute, and to confirm a decree, that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now then, O king, establish the decree, publish a writ, and that the decree of the Persians and the Medes be not changed. Then Darius commanded the decree to be written. Then, and when Daniel knew that the decree was ordered, he went into his house, and his windows were open to his chambers toward Jerusalem, and 3 times in the day he knelt before the king's knees, and prayed and gave thanks before Elohim, as he had used to do before. Then these men watched and found Daniel praying, supplicating to his Elohim. And they came and said to the king, O king, thou hast made a decree, that whatsoever man shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, but of thee, O king, thou shalt cast in the den of lions. And the king said, The word is true, and the decree of the Medes and the Persians shall not pass. Then they answered and said before the king, Daniel of the children of the captivity of Judah has not submitted to thy decree, and 3 times in the day he makes his requests of his Elohim. Then the king, when he heard the saying, was much grieved for Daniel, and he greatly exerted himself for Daniel to deliver him, and he exerted himself until evening to deliver him. And those men said to the king, Now, king, that the law of the Medes and the Persians is that we must not change any decree of state statute which the king shall make.
16. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel, and cast him into the den of lions. But the king said to Daniel, Thy Elohim, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. 17. And they brought a stone, and put it on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his ring, and with the ring of his nobles, that the case might not be altered with regard to Daniel. 18. And the king departed to his house, and lay down fasting, and they brought him no food, and his sleep departed from him. But Elohim shut the mouths of the lions, and they not molest Daniel. 19. Then the king arose very early in the morning, and came in haste to the den of lions. 20. And when he drew near to the den, he cried with a loud voice, Daniel, servant of the living Elohim, has thy Elohim, whom thou servest continually, been able to deliver thee from the lion's mouth? 21. And Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. 22. My Elohim has sent his angel, and stopped the lions' mouths, and they have not hurt me, for uprightness was found in me before him, and moreover before thee, O king, I have committed no trespass. 23. Then the king was very glad for him, and he commanded to bring Daniel out of the den. So Daniel was brought out of the den, and there was found no hurt upon him, because he believed in his Elohim. 24. And the king commanded, and they brought the men that had accused Daniel, and they were cast into the den of lions, and their children, and their wives, and they reached not the bottom of the den before the lions had the mastery of them, and utterly broke to pieces all their bones. 25. Then King Darius wrote to all nations, tribes, and languages, who dwell in all the earth, saying, Peace be multiplied to you. 26. This decree has been set forth by me in every dominion of my kingdom, that men tremble and fear before the Elohim of Daniel, for he is the living and eternal Elohim, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed, and his dominion is forever. 27. He helps and delivers, and works signs and wonders in the heaven and on the earth, who has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. 28. And Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius, and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian.
Proverbs 17, Septuagint. Better is a morsel with pleasure and peace, than a house full of many good things, and unjust sacrifices with strife. A wise servant shall rule over foolish masters, and shall divide portions amongst brethren. As silver and gold are tried in the furnace, so are choice hearts with Jehovah. A bad man hearkens to the tongue of transgressors, but the righteous man attends not to false lips. He that laughs at the poor provokes him that made him, and he that rejoices at the destruction of another shall be held guiltless. But he that has compassion shall find mercy. Children's children are the crown of old men, and their fathers are the glory of children. The faithful has the whole world full of wealth, but the faithless not even a farthing. Faithful lips will not suit a fool, nor lying lips a just man. Instructions is to them that use it a gracious reward, and whithersoever it may turn, it shall prosper. He that conceals injury seeks love, but he that hates to hide separates friends and kindred. A threat breaks down the heart of the wise man, but a fool through a scourge understands not. Every bad man stirs up strife, but Jehovah will send out against him an unmerciful messenger. Care may befall a man of understanding, but fools will meditate. Whoso rewards evil for good, evil shall not be removed from his house. Rightful rule gives power to words, but sedition and strife precedes poverty. He that pronounces the unjust just, and the just unjust, is unclean and abominable with Elo-heem. Why has the fool wealth? For the senseless man will not be able to purchase wisdom. He that exalts his own house seeks ruin, and he that turns aside from instruction shall fall into mischief. Have thou a friend for every time. Let brethren be useful in distress, and for on this account they are. A foolish man applauds and rejoices over himself, as he also that becomes surety would make himself responsible for his own friends. A lover of sin rejoices and strives, and the hard-hearted man comes not in for good. A man of a changeful tongue will fall into mischief, and the heart of a fool is grief to its possessor. A father rejoices not over an uninstructed son, but a wise son gladdens his mother. A glad heart promotes health, but the bones of a sorrowful man dry up. The ways of man who unjustly receives gifts in his bosom do not prosper, and an ungodly man perverts the ways of righteousness. The countenance of wise men is sensible, but the eyes of a fool goes to the ends of the earth. A foolish son is the cause of anger to his father, and grief to her that bore him. It is not right to punish a righteous man, nor is it holy to plot against righteous princes. He that forbears to utter a hard word is discreet, and a patient man is wise. Wisdom shall be imputed to the fool who asks after wisdom, and he who holds his peace shall seem to be sensible.